Welcome to Share Talk, the only podcast where investors come first.
Hello and welcome to Share Talk. Today I'm joined by Ian McDonough, who's CEO at Blackbird. How are you today, Ian?
Hi Zach, how you doing?
Right, Blackbird, the clue isn't in the name in terms of perhaps what your business activity is involved in. Maybe you could just explain that to us.
We are a video editing platform, a cloud-based video editing platform that allows for video to be created and published from remote places on very low bandwidth, on very low powered computers from anywhere and by anyone. So we work with some of the biggest names in the business. For instance, we work with the NHL and the NFL in the States, with over 50 news stations across America. We work with BT recently, and we've just been appointed to be part of the largest sporting events that are going to happen this summer and early next year. In the Far East, which is kind of the most prestigious sporting events there are out there. So, yeah, that's what we do.
Right, and you've been on the market for 20 years. You've been in the hot seat for the last 3 years. It looks as though the main positive changes have happened since you turned up. What's been your strategy since becoming CEO of Blackbird?
When I joined the business, I knew there was something very special at the heart of what we did. But we were selling really an artisanal tool to a very small part of the media industry, just basically to Soho in London. I recognised the move to the cloud, the inexorable move to the cloud that was happening in the industry, and wanted to make this much more industrial. So rather than being artisanal, we made it much more industrial. So we changed the strategy to make it more robust. We changed the team to make them more applicable for these larger deals. We refinanced the business. We branded the business as well. So it was called Forbidden Technologies before. It's now called Blackbird PLC. And we've been successful in that. What I've also done since then is to look at how we scale beyond that as large customers. So rather than having a much larger sales team to keep selling to more and more customers, we're now leveraging the partners that we have, the OEM partners that we have. OEM stands for Original Equipment Manufacturer. And what it really means is there's a very large technology stack that Blackbird becomes a component of, a kind of Blackbird inside model, if you like. And the OEM sales teams now take Blackbird out and resell us as part of an end-to-end media supply chain.
I've looked at your valuations around 80 million at the moment. From what I've seen in my travels over the last 20 years, and especially in the last few years, in this particular current, let's say, bull market for technology, it's in the pandemic, so online and the area you're in has ballooned. Any company in your space which is international, which is scalable, which has its own IP, will inevitably get to a £1 billion or $1 billion valuation. I mean, you just see that almost everywhere, and it just almost like a matter of time. Is that something which you agree with, and is that something which you are aiming for?
I would love to be a British unicorn, absolutely, Zach. That's certainly something that I would like to aim for. You're right, at the very heart of what we've got is IP that is used by some of the biggest names in the industry. So it really has those proof points already. And we have a strategy in place to scale us to a much larger company. I wouldn't want to put a number on an actual valuation that I see, or we don't make forecasts in the market. But I understand that there's an example has been set by other companies that would take us to that level, yes.
No, it's an interesting, it seems to be something which is an interesting, you've got your own IP, you're already working now with the big wigs of the business. What is the game plan from now, given that you've sort of you've done the dirty work for growing from a small company to, let's say, a medium size, or a player, which is rubbing shoulders with the stars? How do you now maximize where you are and where you're going?
What we've shared so far is that we're part of a market opportunity for video editing is something around $1 billion. But because we sell a little bit more than just the pure video editing, we also sell infrastructure, cloud services, bandwidth, etc. We're selling, versus that 1 billion, we're selling around six times that. We see our addressable market around $6 billion. So we've got a fair amount of headroom to grow in terms of where we see the potential of this business. But outside of pure media and entertainment video editing software, we know that the codec itself is applicable to other types of businesses as well. So whether in the future it's a licensing business, or whether they're just new verticals that we can move into, there's lots of scope for us to take different paths in the future.
The other point, apart from, let's say, my back of a fag packet estimations, is the nitty-gritty that you have the margins, and it tends to be a case that a lot of tech companies or companies in the new economy, they might have great market share, but they have very poor margins, or they have, or the opposite, but they don't have both. They don't have the reach and the margins at the same time.
That's right, Zach. We're looking at a software that is tried and tested and proved at the very highest level to be very robust. So it's effectively finished. We're always pushing it forward, but it's effectively finished. So we can replicate this software 1 billion times, and it costs us very, very little. Our gross margins are in the region of 95%. So, if you look at how we can be a supplier or licensor of video technology to the media sector on margins of 95%, then you can see how scalable and exciting this business really is.
And I see on the latest RNS you have Adrian Lambert as your marketing director. I guess he's a pretty important person in the company.
Adrian's vital to us, yes, as are many of the team. But Adrian's done a stunning job over the time that he's been with us for the last 2.5 years. But we've got a really core group of personnel around me as well. On the R&D side, we're fantastic in terms of the sales team. They're fantastic, and our product and operations are absolutely second to none as well. So we really have a super team that I've been very discerning and selected for the most part myself, which I'm delighted of their performance, and I want to keep the team together and make sure that we achieve greatness together.
How's the pandemic affected you, and has it been positive or negative?
That's a really interesting question. In the short term, it was undoubtedly a bit of a blow, because we had we were selling into the media sector where there was very little sport, and advertising was dramatically hit. So of course it was decimated in terms of an industry. But as we come out of the other end of COVID, we've got a solution, a cloud-based solution that runs on very low power, as in it runs on very low bandwidth connections and very low computers and storage, that is ideally suited for the post-pandemic media environment. So it's we think of a hybrid way of working. Many people are talking about hybrid way of working. Blackbird is the ideal solution for those people that are creating video in that type of environment.
Just in terms of the rest of the year, is there a roadmap that you maybe can point listeners to?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key thing for listeners to look out for is where we take our OEM strategy, and towards the end of the year, where we take our public cloud and licensing strategy. So we mentioned before that we have a cloud-based platform. We have currently a private cloud, and we allow people to link into our private cloud, although we can work with people in the public cloud. What we want to do towards the end of this year is to have our entire backend, so our entire private cloud within the public cloud. So by public clouds, I mean the likes of Amazon or Google or Microsoft Azure. So that's one thing to really look after. And then, as I mentioned about the licensing, we've got a piece of software, we've got patents that are applicable to people on a licensing basis as well as buying a product. So I'd say to look out for that as well.
Ian, one of the recent pieces of news regarding your company is to do with the carbon efficiency, which seems to be a slightly counterintuitive aspect to your business, but it is a factor.
It absolutely is. I mean, it's one of those stories that's little known by the outside world, but creating content is actually quite a polluting pastime or polluting industry. We've done some analysis with a company called Green Element, who have compared the Blackbird process versus the large-scale competition that we have. And Blackbird was judged to come out around 91% more carbon efficient than the key on-premise NLEs, the non-linear editors. When you look at a 2-week tennis event, and we're a Wimbledon-based company, so we look at our local championship, the Wimbledon Championship, an on-premise system would pollute to the tune of around 174 tons over that 2-week event. That is equivalent to the loss of 2 tennis courts of sea ice, if you think of how that might impact the world. And then you multiply the amount of content being created every single day by these big machines, these big polluting machines, then it really is very impactful. So we think that by leveraging some existing technology and by applying that in the right way, that there is an immediate and large impact that can be had by the media production industry.
Ian McDonough, CEO at Blackbird, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Zach.
Thank you for listening. Remember to visit our website for more news and other podcasts at www.share-talk.com.